Good evening, everyone. Let's put the light on. It's gone dark. Second of two Friday evening videos for Saturday's racing. I've done one for the flat. That should be uploading in the next sort of 10 minutes or so. This one's going to be for the jumps. Market Rasen card tomorrow. An interesting little card. Probably 7 races. The bumper at the end, I've not really got any sort of interest in from a bet, and there's 1 or 2 other races as well that I've just marked them down basically as a bit too hard. The first race, 12:35, 2 mile mares novice hurdle. Additional distances again worth pointing out, as ever with Market Rasen. Bends are moved out. This one's got an extra half furlong, 126 yards, so effectively 2 mile 1. I was toying with having a bet here, and the prices have come up, and it's sort of the price of the one I wanted to lay is a bit too big. I think I was gonna lay Perfect Myth purely on the grounds of on 2 grounds. One, I'm not entirely sure that the 16 length win at Utoxeter last time in a mare's handicap hurdle is all it looks, and the handicapper whacked her for that. Put her on a mark of 121, and it's interesting that rather than go for a handicap where I think off 121 she'd struggle, they're going the novice hurdle route where she's just got the penalty to carry. I don't think she's worth that mark, and I know, as I say, it's not a handicap, so the mark in effect is irrelevant, but you know what I mean. I don't think she's worth 121 anyway. And secondly, the form of the Neil King yard, which, as I sort of pointed out earlier in the week with Balagan, has sort of fallen off a little bit, really. He's had a couple of runners today. One pulled up, the other one ran all right, but he's in nowhere near the form that he was a couple of months ago, or even 6 weeks ago. So with that, I was going to lay Perfect Myth, but it's been stuck in around about sort of 9 to 2, 5 to 1, and that's more or less where I had it. I was really hoping that they'd be a bit shorter about Perfect Myth and a bit bigger about 1 or 2 others, and I'm now tempted instead to lay Go Chic at 6 to 5, because that looks very short to me for a horse that won what I thought was a fairly average Southwell bumper. It's all right for him, but it's only all right for him. I mean, the horse hasn't jumped a fence in a hurdle in public yet in anger, and I'm now tempted to sort of switch, and now Perfect Myth is the right price, and go and lay Go Chic at sort of 6 to 5. I should be able to quite easily lay under 6 to 4 on Betfair, because this is a race with a bit of depth. There's trainers in here. You've got Jamie Snowden with 1, you've got Tom Lacey with 1, you've got Dan Skelton with 1, and the top one, Mrs. Hyde, as well as 1, 2, and the form of her previous win over Stoner's Choice looks a bit better now after Stoner's Choice came out and won at Perth in the week. So there is depth to this, and there are 1 or 2 that look a little bit bigger than I thought, and 1 or 2 that look a bit short. I'm now tempted to sort of switch and lay Go Chic, but all depend on the prices in the morning when the market's settled down. 105 is an interesting little juvenile hurdle. We're talking about sort of horses, whether they're worth their mark or not. I was joking this morning. I was chatting with my good friend Mr. Rory Delaghi about Iconic, who's been put in here at 8 to 13. I mean, she's now on a mark of 128. If they put her away and didn't run her again, she'd get in the Fred Winter with that. And yet all she's done is won 4 pretty moderate summer jumps, juveniles, and the fact that she got beat off 57 back on the flat last time, what looked a fairly much a penalty kick. If you thought she'd improved that much, that she was now 71 pounds higher over jumps than she is over the flat, then that should have been an absolute penalty kick at Lingfield last time, and she still got beat. Which makes me think that, again, the mark of 128 is just miles out, really. She's a good little... What she is a really quick, economical, nimble little summer jumper, and she's deserved all the wins that she's got. And this is probably no harder, I would say, than some of the races that she's been in. In fact, this is a clever bit of placing, because although she's won 4, she's only picking up £8 penalties for all of them, for all 4. Because if you won 2 hurdles, or a class 1 or a class 2, you get £8. So she's only getting £8 for all of those. So she's been well placed here, and she's already beaten Soldier on Parade. She beat Soldier on Parade at Bangor, and she's beaten Talking About You. But I I get the feeling Talking About You might be the danger here rather than Soldier on Parade. I don't know. Talking About You only won a moderate race at Fontwell, but Talking About You looks a what I would call a proper stayer. And I think this test, this might suit it. Again, it's 2 mile. You've got 2 mile half a furlong. You've got the additional distances, and all Talking About You did was gallop at Fontwell. In fact, it's interesting that the 3 main competitors here, Soldier on Parade, Iconic, Talking About You, all made all last time. So something's got to give in that respect. And I think if they go hard here, I think that's going to suit Talking About You. I think of the 3, she might be. I think she might be the best stayer of the 3, although she's getting a little bit away here, but not a lot off the top ones. But I expect her to go closer here. If there is a question mark about Iconic, it's that she's going right-handed here. Wins have all come left-handed so far. Newton Abbott, Stratford, Bangor. Is she going to be as effective right-handed? And if there is hassle on the front end, how's she going to cope with that? But again, it's all dependent on prices. I keep saying the same things, but it is. It's all dependent on what prices they are really tomorrow. 135's nice little race. Got a nice each way shape to it because you've got 1 out already and Write It Down, and you've got 3 or 4 here. I couldn't give much chance to. I have to say, they're fairly well exposed, most of these. It has to be said. I fancied High Council to run a bit better at Utoxeter, and he didn't. So I think I've had enough of him for the time being. Game Line might attract a bit of support. First run for Peter Bowen, blinkers on first time, change of headgear, but he's very well handicapped. But Peter Bowen, 1 winner so far in this season. I mean, you're hoping a bit, aren't you? Weight on It is going to be favourite here after a defeat of Jen's Boy at Southall, where Weight on It kept jumping out to his right. So you think a right-handed track is going to suit. It's not always the case with these horses. Sometimes they need to run down the fences a bit. And it isn't a given that going right-handed will improve Weight on It. And he did make a shocking mistake at the last as well. You need to cut that out. You can't make mistakes on these last 3 at Market Racing. You need a good jumper, something that jumps well. And with that, I thought Miami Present each way and around about sort of 8-9 to 1 tonight might be the bet. He's had 3 runs now. First 2 he pulled up on, and then it was a lot better at Southall last time behind Mrs. Miggins. Mrs. Miggins hasn't done a lot for the form today, but Mrs. Miggins made an early mistake today at Utoxeter, and that basically put her on the back foot from the word go. So I'm happy to sort of forgive that and not look at that as a pointer to Miami Present's chances here. If you look, Miami Present's already got a win at Market Raisin to his name, and he jumped really well that day, and he jumped well at Southall too, till he just got a bit tired, I think, late on, and sure enough, the vet said he was suffering from heat stress after the race. He's on a really good mark here if you want to go back 3 years, because that's the last time really before these 3 runs that we saw him. He last raced in 2017, then he's come back this season. As I say, he's needed his first 2 efforts, probably needed all 3 in truth. Mark of 107 looks fair now, and this is the easiest race he's contested for a while. I hope that what Miami Present does here is go to the front, because there isn't a lot of pace, and jump these daft. Because if he can get in a rhythm, he might not get pulled back here, Miami Present. I like him, I really do. I think he's one of 2 solid bets on the card. 9 to 1 looks entirely fair each way for Miami Present. 210 is the handicap chase. Again, there's a couple of potential pacemakers here in Vinny the Hoddy and Fanzio. Fanzio was quite impressive actually last time. And you can give plenty of these a chance. I'm not going to start going through them all. The one I eventually came down on was Never Been to Paris, who won over course and distance last time, won well, only gets a £5 rise for that. That looks fair. Cheap pieces go on to make him go forward a bit earlier because he was a little bit sticky early, but once he got into the race late on, I mean, he's powered away from Cage of Fear late, and Cage of Fear was a ready winner at Perth earlier in the week. So the form looks decent. As I say, no problem with course and distance. Jumped pretty well that day as well, last time out. And a £5 rise is fair. As I say, you can give plenty of these chances, and there are potential improvers a bit further down the handicap. But Longano Palace was the other one I looked at in the race at 14s. He's a real sort of... He should have won more than he has, Longano Palace. But this step back up in trip's definitely going to suit him. He got a little bit tired over 2.5 mile at Stratford last time. I think he possibly needed the run. He still looked like he needed it to me. That was his third run of 3. He is back over fence. That was over fences. I should say he was in a Class 3 handicap hurdle here earlier in the season off a mark of 123 and only got beaten 3/4 of a length. He's £2 higher here. He's one, and the step back up and trip will definitely suit him, and the yard are absolutely flying for Glade Brian. He's one of these though. He's a real sort of, as I say, he should have won more races than he has. I think he's a danger, and I think 14s is probably a little bit big for him. I may end up betting the pair at the prices. 7s and 14s looks entirely fair. The 245 is the big handicap. I've just written it off. I can't work it out. I've looked at the race 2 or 3 times. Nothing's jumping out at me. There's loads. Again, there's loads you give chances here too. Beyond the Clouds, top one. I know he's got off a mark of 145 now. That looks a lot, but I thought he was quite impressive at Uttoxeter. Despite making late mistakes in the race, he had enough in the tank. And the £6 rise looks fair. Highly prized. Similarly was impressive when defeating Caius Marcus and then come up against the much improved Giamacho last time. He needs good ground. Brandon Castle we know all about. Twice a winner here already in the season, and then didn't run at all badly at Haydock back on the flat in the Old Borough Cup. Yeah, the Old Borough Cup, he says confidently. And there's loads of others. Fair Mountain went well here when second to Red Force won in the big summer race, the big summer plate handicap earlier in the season. Dino Velvet's never far away in these races. The faster they go, the better his chance late on as well, and so on and so on. There's barely anything out of here that you can rule out. I just basically filed the race under too difficult. Move on, and move on we do to a couple of potentially more interesting races to me. The 320 is the first division of what will effectively be a 2 mile 3, 2 mile 2.5. Again, you get the additional distances on, so a 2 mile 3 handicap hurdle. And there is a horse in here that I looked at the race and I thought, what price would you bet this at? I thought I'd definitely bet it at 3 to 1, and you can get 5. So I think with that, I think the Craze Moon has the potential to be better than this lot. You've got to go back a bit, but on old form off 99, he's absolutely chucked in here. He spent much of 2019 and early 2020 with Claire Dyson, and unfortunately the horse seemed to not really perform for Claire. Then he came out here, first one for Michael Scudamore in February, in a better race than this over fence as a Class 4 chase, and was second to Lady Master that day. Ran really well on the first start for the new yard, and off the back of that was betting to 11 to 8 favourite to win a novices handicap chase at Wetherby in March. Now he travelled all right that day and then hit the front 4 out and stopped very quick, and you knew there was something wrong. And sure enough, he's come here after a wind up. There was definitely something wrong that day. The way that he stopped, you knew that there was definitely something up with her. And the fact that she's coming in now, a fresh horse, after the wind up, back over hurdles at a track where she goes well, off effectively a £6 lower mark, it all sort of looks a little bit like tomorrow might be the day for the Craze Moon. Particularly with the ground being a bit better. I don't think the heavy ground particularly helped her at Wetherby anyway. So back on better ground, trip absolutely fine, ground absolutely fine, track absolutely fine, and I wouldn't be at all surprised. I mean, you can get 5 to 1 about her tonight. I wouldn't be at all surprised if she goes off half that tomorrow. I really wouldn't. Petitioner's been put in here as the early favourite. Not hard to see why. After a much better effort at Kelso behind Dubai Outlaw last time. Nudged up £1 for that. There are races in Petitioner and they've gone for the cheap pieces. But outside of those two, you're struggling to find a lot. Swilly Sunset threatens to win races and just doesn't go through with it. Travels and travels and travels, and when push comes to shove, just doesn't want to knuckle down and do it. The Blinkers might do the trick tomorrow, but he's had cheap pieces before to little effect. There will be a race when they go a million one day up front and Swilly Sunset will fall in, but I've been caught out too many times now. And at a whopping price, there's a race in Bull's Empire somewhere as well. Wasn't awful at Stratford last time, and the effort at Fakenham in last October when he tried to lay it down to the Wolf before the Wolf just laughed at him and went away again. But he had a go that day. And there is a race in Bull's Empire somewhere, but I think this is just a little bit too much tomorrow. I do like the Crazy Moon. I think the Crazy Moon's a bet, and I think 5-1's a reasonable price. The second division of it is a lot harder. So I say it's a lot harder. We've got our old friend in here again, Alcock and Brown, who hopefully will run tomorrow. Twice now has been. I don't need to tell you because I've put him up twice on these video previews and said you need to be watching this horse. I told you to be watching this horse back in sort of January, February. I put him up as an eye catcher and just basically said watch for when they bring this horse back out on decent ground in the summer. Twice they bought Alcock and Brown out. Twice he's been a non-runner. Twice he's been bet off the boards. Bookmakers are now a bit more wary. 9-2, 5-1 the general price. Whether they'll run Alcock and Brown or not tomorrow, who knows? But he's off a ridiculously low mark. I mean, he's thrown in off this mark and he's back on decent ground. And the cheap pieces are back on as well. If you look at the record with cheap pieces on the flat, it's pretty good. I think he's had about a dozen, no less than that actually. I think he'd had about 8 starts and won twice in cheap pieces. So it's all there. The clues are all there. But now you're getting 5-1. You ain't getting 50-1. There you go. So 2 bets for me tomorrow on the card at the moment. Miami Present and the Crazy Moon are the 2 bets for me. There may be more depending on prices. Best of luck with all your bets then tomorrow. I've covered loads and I'm either going to be very rich tomorrow night or very poor. Cheers guys, have a good weekend.